Welcome to Brand on the Rocks, the podcast that distills bold ideas into clear messages you can actually use. Each week, we serve up conversations, audits, and straight pours of insight to help you cut through the noise and grow your business. Hosted by brand strategist Ryan Holck, this is where clarity comes neat and your brand gets remembered. Well, hey, Adam, thank you for being with me today on Brand on the Rocks. I know we have known each other for a while now, but the people who are listening in maybe don't know who you are. So give me a little bit of an idea of who you are, kind of what you do in the marketing world.
Yeah, I'm a recovering Canadian. I started my agency in 2011. We started as a web design agency, and then we grew from there to do, full scale marketing strategy. And recently, we've rebranded to Trust Marketing Agency. So I did a lot of work in the not-for-profit space for a few years, and did webinars in that space, and got to know a lot of people there. So that's how you and I met, and
Yep.
since then we've met multiple times in real life. I think my favorite story that I like to tell is when we met at a conference in Atlanta, and we were talking for maybe 45 minutes. We were just catching up, and it was probably about that point, about 40 minutes in, we realized we'd never met in real life before.
Yeah.
We'd been
Yeah.
friends online, just had built a friendship that didn't matter that we weren't in real life. But it was so, we've caught up multiple times now, and in my RV, I crashed your driveway a couple times
Yep. A couple
in
times. Yep.
California. So it's
So,
been a lot of fun.
so you said RV, which for
Yeah.
those who aren't listening, probably don't know that you guys are, I would call you nomads, but how would you explain what you guys do?
Yeah, nomad's a good word. Digital nomad is typically the word that's get thrown around right now. We travel full time, so we've been traveling full time since 2018, and that's why I say I'm a recovering Canadian, because I don't spend all that much time there in Canada. But yeah, we've been traveling with our three boys since 2018. So our boys were 4, 6, and 8 when we got on the road originally in our RV in a camper. And now we are currently overseas, pet sitting and house sitting. We've been to 19 countries and counting.
Wow. That's crazy. So I'm amazed, and having had you even here and kind of watching, but trying to figure out this, how do you still work? How do you run an agency? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like when you're on the road? What does that look like for you? And how does that play into this rebrand of trust marketing for you? Are you struggling to turn your ideas into results and feeling isolated in the process? Alone in business and uncertain what should be happening next? Then the Thing Orlando is for you. This event is where entrepreneurs come together to connect, to gain clarity about their next steps, and to elevate their business game. I'll be speaking there again this year, and you can join with a special discount using I'm with Ryan at registration. The Thing Orlando, November 14 through 16. Find out more at thethingorlando.com.
Yeah. So for us, we have to create a lot of async opportunities with our clients. So we do a lot of correspondence by email, because I wouldn't say we're never sure. I mean, I know what time zone I'm in today, and I know what time zone I'll be in next week, in theory. But I can't plan. I want the flexibility to not be obligated to a 9 a.m. Monday meeting with a client every month or every week or whatever the case might be, right? So we intentionally create async relationships with our clients. And it's not that we don't ever do a video call, but we wouldn't commit to like a consistent call every day or every week at the same time. And so that's, a factor. And some clients go, no, I want a Tuesday noon meeting every week. And it's like, great. I don't think I'm the person for you, but I know 3 other people who would be a great fit for your brand. And I'm happy to make the referral, because for us it's less about trying to build our empire, and more about building what it takes in order for us to get to continue to travel. So we are kind of selective with our clients in that sense. But the cool thing is we also are flexible. So if a client says, hey, we need you on site, a lot of agencies are like, okay, well, let's plan something for 4 weeks from now. We might be around the corner. So we
Right.
might be a 1 hour flight away. So in that case, we do have some flexibility.
That's really cool. So I know one of the things that you and I, even this last week, were kicking around on social was the idea of elevator pitches, and specifically that people aren't always great at them. And one of my core ideas that I keep coming back to is that we've got to be in the business of building trust. And
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you're going with trust marketing because that I think there's some alignment there. But so I'm curious, as you think about really the job that an elevator pitch has to do,
Hmm.
you're doing them often because you're traveling. So what
Right.
are you finding needs to be a part of them? Like what's working for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's start with what's not working
Okay.
because, like, you know, with digital nomads, which again, we work from the road while we're traveling, right? And so with RVers, like full time RVers, a lot of people are working from the road. And so you sit around a campfire with 4 or 5 families and you ask, like, so what do you do for work? And basically, you're hearing these elevator pitches. And I heard, you know,
Yeah.
in the last year I was on the road, I probably heard 2,000 elevator pitches, right? Because you sit around a campfire with 4 or 5 other people and they each tell you what they do and they try and be succinct enough not to be boring, right?
Mhm.
In theory, that's the preference at least. And then like somebody else walks over to the fire and somebody goes, "Oh yeah, Dave, come on, grab a seat." And now you're introducing yourself again to that person and he's saying, "Hey, so, it's nice to meet you. What do you do for work?" And then all of a sudden you're right back into that elevator pitch. And so what doesn't work is you have 30 seconds or 60 seconds and you try and blurt out a
Mm,
Cheesecake Factory menu of all the things you do and all the things you
yes.
offer. And then at the end of 60 seconds, you flip the page and you just keep rambling. And then you finish that off with like, so yeah, that's what I do. And it's like, okay, have you never explained this before in your life? Like you don't even have a segue, so for me, that's the problem, right? And
Yeah.
and for some people, they might hear this and be like, okay, well, Adam's just an irritant, and maybe that's the case, right? Adam just gets irritated really easily. Not entirely untrue. But there are some opportunities that you have when somebody says, "Tell me about your business. What do
Yeah.
you do?" They're giving you permission and
Mm,
their attention for 60 seconds. Let's figure out a way to make that count. And this is beyond also, you're going to go to plenty of conferences or you're going to meet clients or going to get introduced to somebody. So I really think this is an underrated skill is to
mm,
be able to communicate in 60 seconds. And the thing that I think is the goal of an elevator pitch after, a lot of consideration and hearing plenty of them. The goal of an elevator pitch is not for me to blurt out everything I do for business and try and convince you to be a client. The goal of an elevator pitch is to create enough curiosity that the listener asks for more information because now I've got permission to dig into the details further, right? And so then we could talk about, okay, well, if you give 30 seconds and somebody asks for more details, well,
mhm,
maybe now you have an opportunity to talk for 2 minutes, but you want to plant the bait. So they ask for more details. And now you have an opportunity to talk for 5 minutes,
mm.
right? And so for me, the goal of an elevator pitch is not to blurt everything you do. The goal of an elevator pitch is to get the listener to ask for more information. And when we create an elevator pitch with that in mind,
Yeah.
now it completely changes how we structure that 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
Okay then. So I think of elevator pitches as micro stories. Like this story could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 minutes, it could be 10. Like it's going to depend on the context. But as I talk to people about creating them and figuring out what should you say, it comes down to like the hook. Like what needs to be said in that moment. So how do you think about the hook? Like if I said nothing else in this moment, what am I going to share?
Yeah, so part of me is a little unorthodox in this
Hmm,
specific approach. So when
okay.
if somebody says to me, if somebody is a potential client for me, I know that before my elevator pitch, right? So this is helpful information. So I've
Mm,
got two pitches on hand. One is like, um, if a lady bakes homemade sourdough and sells 3 loaves a day to other people who are in the campground. Okay, you're not going to be one of my clients. So let me give you the elevator pitch so that if you hear somebody who needs my services, you could pass my name on. Okay. The second is
mm,
someone who goes, "Oh yeah, I've got 5 employees, and we do this really well, but we really suck at social media and our website's crap." And I'm like, "You are lining me up to help you." And this is my elevator pitch for that person.
okay.
And so I kind of have two on hand. So the first one, well, let me go with the client. If I see somebody who says like, "Yeah, if I'm saying this could potentially be a client, what I say is I peel digital onions." That's my elevator pitch. I peel digital
Wow.
onions. And they say,
Okay. So tell me
"Well,
more.
what does that mean?" Exactly. So digital marketing is a complex thing. There's all kinds of layers, but really what you need to do is get to the heart of the issue. So before we're throwing on layers like social media and website, we're really peeling
Mm,
back all those layers to get the core of your message. Because once we can figure out what the core of your message is, we can build consistency across all your messaging, the kind of consistency that builds trust, which is essential for somebody to want to make a purchase from you.
wow, that's so good.
Okay,
So
so
then
that's
what do
my
you
elevator pitch. And then they ask the follow up. And
right.
then that's my follow up pitch. Right. And then
Yep.
they'll go. And then if they're interested, then they would be like, "Well, what does that process look like?" Right. And now's when I get to talk about, let's talk about messaging. Let's figure out your core values. Let's figure out all the touch points your clients have. Let's figure out how to drive your core values through every single touch point. Let's figure out how to empower
Mm,
your team to make decisions through the filter of and then I could give them, my entire book at that point in time. Right.
right.
Because we went through this progression. It wasn't, "So Adam, what do you do?" "Well, I do digital marketing and I do social media and I do websites and really, but I do all that stuff. But really it's about messaging because all those things have to be done through the filter of your messaging and you need to figure out your messaging first." And then they can't wait to get off the quote unquote elevator. Like this pitch, like
Yes.
I'm on the 7th floor, I'll get off at the 4th floor and walk. I'm out of here.
I'm out of
Right.
here.
And that's the issue.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned sitting around the campfire, like having these conversations. So
Yeah.
when you're having a conversation with someone who looks like they're potentially a customer and you've given
Mhm.
that kind of pitch, when you're thinking then about, all right, they need to fix their elevator pitch, what kind of process would you do to actually help them think about that for them? Say they hired you, like what would you walk them through?
Yeah, I mean, if we all just said we peel digital onions, we're all going to have a problem, right? It's going to
Right.
become so trite that I'm going to have to think of a new, better elevator pitch.
Mm,
So we can't all say that. So nobody steal that, please. But I think there is a way to create, you know, maybe this is the time where creating something cute actually beats creating something clever. Creating something clever actually beats
mm,
creating something clear, in the sense that clarity often sounds like, and I know you would help a client really get clear, but clarity sometimes comes with the guise of descriptions and details and like blah 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 blah
mm.
blah 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 blah. Right? That's how I get clear. I get clear by giving you more information. Right? Like if I tell my kids go to the car, that's different than I say put your socks on, put your shoes on, tie your shoes, take your pajamas off, put on clothes, don't forget your underwear, and go out to the car. Right?
Right.
And so sometimes clarity comes with the guise of additional detail. And so in this initial elevator pitch, like I
Mm,
peel digital onions might be the cuteness or the cleverness that trumps clarity. because you're going to turn around and have somebody ask for more information, right? So
Mm.
it's not really your elevator pitch in the sense that it's a tease to get somebody to ask you for your elevator pitch. That's probably a better way to think of it.
Right, but in some ways, if the goal is to build trust with people, that means it's got to be a two-way street. Means it
Yeah.
can't just be me verbally exploding on someone. There's got to be
Right.
conversation, and I think you're right in terms of that being a really nice way to invite a conversation, because even if the person's not your potential customer, it's at least an interesting conversation, and it's
Right.
I don't, as a listener, tune out immediately. Like I'm drawn to say, okay, I need to know more, whether I'm interested in the product or service or not. So it immediately
Right.
goes, hey, this is going to be about a story. I'm emotionally invested now because I want to know, I need an answer. Like, where is he going with this?
Right.
And so I think in some ways you're right. It's not the clarity moment, but it is definitely, you're opening a story loop that someone is really hard to immediately close the door on. Like you're
Right.
drawn to have a conversation, which helps you build trust personally, helps them feel like, hey, we're actually there's some cool stuff
Right.
there.
Yeah. So, like, a realtor might say something like, I sell castles, right? And someone goes, what do you mean by that? And you say, well, a man's home is his castle, right? And so I
Yeah.
find it important to help people, or um, I don't know why I would be stuck on properties, but maybe somebody who's in construction says, I build castles, a home builder,
Mhm.
or somebody who, sells insurance says something about, like, I give families plans and peace of mind. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, or I'm a there are ways to open the door, and as I'm saying this, I'm thinking that's less of the elevator pitch and more an opening to have that person say, well, what do you mean by that? Because as soon as that person says, what do you mean by that, you now have permission
Yep.
to expand, to give the clarity and the details. You're not
So
just stuffing words in their ears.
so it's
So I think what
interesting.
follows that is the elevator pitch.
It's interesting because what you're doing is reversing the hook. You're not making the pitch be the immediate hook. You just want people to be intrigued.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the movie that says, you probably wondered what got me here. I
Right.
mean, that kind of
Yeah, it's the
feeling.
Wonder Years narration.
Yes, it's, and then you're into it because you immediately go, I'm not sure how much I care, but I do want to hear this.
Right.
So one that I thought of I talked to someone who helps with planning, like for people for retirement and stuff, and theirs is about legacy. Like I help people build
Mm,
legacy, lasting
yeah.
legacy, and I'm like, okay, no, that's an interesting kind of approach. But I do like that because you're not dependent on having to find a common ground of, have you ever seen someone who has this problem or this issue or this, you know,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're right into it, which is really cool. So if
Yeah, I have a
you're
friend in the
working,
financial industry. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
I have a friend in the financial industry, and his opener is, I make mattresses fatter, because the idea is you stuff money under your mattress, right?
Mhm.
And so there's another example. And that one just came to me.
That's so funny because when my wife's, Debbie, but when her grandparents passed away, that was the first question is, did everyone look under the mattresses to make sure nothing is hidden? Like, please, there was that era. Please, just someone check. That's so
Yep.
funny. That's so funny. So I'm curious because, like, I've come up with this process to help people think about this, but your
Yeah.
approach is different than mine, and I like it. So I'm curious, how do you help someone like sit down and go, how are we going to come up with that question that is the mattress question, is the castle question, like is
Yeah.
the onion? What are you doing to help them
Well,
process?
yeah. So the mattress is that idea that you squirrel away
Yep.
money under your mattress. The castle idea is from that old saying, "A man's home is his castle." Mine is a Shrek analogy, but we don't have to get into that with digital onions. But is there a common phrase that refers to something that happens in your industry? Is there a common
Mm,
trope? Is there a common, like byline or subtitle, or is there a phrase that people might just throw around in regular conversation? Like, someone might say a man's home is his castle, and we all know what that person means, but
yep.
it doesn't stand out in conversation. It just happens. So what are some of those phrases? What are some of those ideas? What are some of those similar analogies? And then could we tie that to your industry?
Mm,
And I do love to tie it. So I don't say I peel onions, I say I peel digital onions, because that already starts to trigger the
mhm,
conversation, right? When you say castle, castle already gives the idea of home, right? And so that
right.
starts to trigger the conversation. So maybe there are other kind of analogies that could work, but I think finding something that relates to your industry that's a common line. And the funny thing is, in whoever's industry I'm talking to, they
Yeah.
already know 10 of those lines, right? Because it's the thing that they get asked at, every Christmas dinner. It's like, how, you know, helping people squirrel away more money. It's like, yeah, that's my thing, right? It's like,
Hmm. So that's actually an interesting one because okay, so as an introvert, I'm like, I don't want to be the center of this conversation, but I need to be the center of this conversation, and I'm trying to find that happy ground. And so I tend to avoid things like that. Like, are you squirreling, money away in those kind of conversations?
yeah.
But you're saying, man, just lean into those suckers with gusto. Like, find it
Well, I
and
think when it comes to somebody says, "So what do you do?" Like
yeah,
if somebody says, "So what do you do?" and there's 40 people who are at your networking event, you're going to remember the guy who said, "I peel
yeah.
digital onions," right? Or you're going to remember
Hmm.
the guy who said, "I build castles," right? Like and this is another thing that I did is I print all my business cards in plastic, because if somebody goes home from a networking event and they look through their stack of business cards, they notice the plastic one. And
Hmm.
also, if it goes through the laundry, the plastic one survives. And so, you know, it's this idea of what do you do to stand out?
Yeah.
And you're still getting the opportunity to give your full 60 seconds, but you're prefacing it in a way that the person is asking for those 60 seconds, not that the person feels like etiquette is to listen for 60 seconds.
So back to the campfire for a moment, and you having these 2,000 plus conversations or pitches. That number astounds me, but it's curious to me because as you see people and you're having this conversation with yours and they're sharing theirs, and did you ever have a moment where the person you're talking to, you recognize they realized theirs didn't work?
Oh, yeah.
And what was that conversation like?
Well, the challenge is that you know, to say to somebody your elevator pitch sucks, which, you know, out of love, you need to say that. But out of, hi, it's nice to meet you, it's not really the time to say your elevator pitch sucks.
Right.
Right. So you talk to somebody and you get to be friends with them and you hear them explain to enough people how their elevator pitch. And then they look at you and they kind of roll their eyes themselves, in the sense that, like,
Hmm.
they can tell the other person's tuning out, right? So we go back
Yeah.
to the Cheesecake Factory menu. And for
Yep.
those who aren't familiar with Cheesecake Factory, it's worth the trip. Number one, because you're going to take 40 minutes to figure out what you order. But number two, the food's delicious. But the reality is, they give you a serious catalog of food to choose from. And really, what I need is like 3 appetizers, 3 entrees, and 3 dessert options. Like that would be perfect for my brain, right?
Yeah.
Like the choice is paralyzing, the analysis paralysis. And so when you give a Cheesecake Factory size elevator pitch and you just start rambling about your products and services, it doesn't sound like you're confident in your products and services if you have to say, oh yeah, and also I, right? If you say, hey, I do this one thing and I do this one thing really well, I'm a specialist in this one thing, that even if the one thing includes all kinds of sub items, right?
Right.
So digital marketing could be the Cheesecake Factory menu, but being able to say digital marketing as your one thing creates confidence from somebody who thinks, oh, that's digital marketing. That must be your specialty. So really opening the door to somebody and saying, hey, now how would I approach somebody who's got a ramble on elevator pitch? I try and sum it up for them, right? So somebody says, oh yeah, I'm a home builder and I build the best homes and everybody else requires 3/8 plywood and, titanium wrenches. And obviously Adam knows nothing about home building, but we build with even thicker plywood and we use even thicker wrenches or whatever the case is. I don't know.
Right.
But I would say, so you build castles, and maybe next time they go, hey, that worked. Wonder if I try that. I build castles.
Interesting. So my brain is always looking to catalog things. Like, what bucket do I put this in? How do I encapsulate this idea as quickly as possible? My problem is, so we have a shared friend named Dave Shrine, and he gave me he was one of the best voices for me in my early years of business. And one of the things that he gifted me with was the importance of context. Like, make sure if you're going to ask someone for something that they have enough information to make an informed decision. And that idea has rattled around in my head for probably 8 to 10 years, because when I'm talking to someone, I'm always thinking, how much context is enough? How much is too much? And for him, I used to call and say, Dave, I need some input on something. And he'd go, dude, you got to tell I need more than the question. You got to give me enough information here. And I feel like sometimes I approach conversations, or I see other business leaders approach conversations where they just jump in as if the person they're talking to has been part of the conversation in their head already.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just plowing down the road. That little reminder of what context is needed and reading the room, so to speak, of, is this a moment where I can lead with, peeling the digital onion, or I need to give them a little more.
Yeah.
You mentioned, are you listening to, do you have an idea of who they are already, so you even know what pitch to give? Because I think that's
right.
I mean, there's times I walk in rooms and I'm like, I assess the room and I go, there is no one here I want to meet.
Right.
Or I should say this way, because that feels horrible. That sounds as bad as I think it does. There is no one here who I feel like is going to be the business contact I'm looking for at this moment.
Yeah.
It's not that, as a person they aren't, but so I very quickly go, I'm just going to tell them I do marketing. Like, I'm not trying to open a loop. I'm not trying to. And I think that's a skill, though, to be able to figure out, how do I assess in this moment, which version do I give to people?
Yeah.
And some of it's listening well, some of it's walking in the room and looking at other people and other conversations and going, what else is happening here? How are other people engaging and connecting? Is this the moment I dive into this thing, or do I,
right.
Right. But I think for me, it's that it comes down to a context issue a lot of the time.
Yeah. And for me, the context issue gets solved by asking a question. So a question that leads to the pain point that I could solve. So I might say, so somebody says, well, what is digital marketing? It's like, okay, well, that's when I know I didn't set you up with enough context, right?
Right.
Like, you don't even know what digital marketing is, which in my brain oddly enough, I assume everybody must know it's 2025. And in reality, that's a stupid assumption. so, so I might say, have you ever tried to use social media to get new clients for your business? And they go, yeah. It's like, okay, I help people build a strategy to get new clients for their business using digital tools like social media, like a website, like email. And so that's, I think often when you ask a question, that opens up, like, have you ever walked into a brand new home and saw that there was paint peeling? Or have you ever walked into a brand new home and noticed the light fixture was hanging from the ceiling? Or saw wires hanging from the house? Whatever the case might be. Okay, we create quality homes that does not happen with. Right? Okay, so now you're a home builder. So now you create some context. So what separates you from the other home builders? Or have you ever walked into a home and, they go, oh yeah, the light switch doesn't work. Well, if they'd built with us and it was within 5 years of their build, we come and fix that for free. Right. So I like the have you ever, or do you know when it happens, or have you ever experienced, or know that thing where that thing where you open the fridge and it smells like dead rat? I don't know, whatever the thing is that you do.
Yeah.
The have you ever, or do you know that, or can we find a common ground that is the problem I'm trying to solve? I think that opens a lot of context.
So you're leading with great questions, with the assumption that a great question is going to be responded to with a good question back.
Well, so my have you ever questions always lead to a yes. And then the answer to that, because if I say, hey, have you ever tried to use social media to get new clients for your business? And they go, no. I go, well, it's nice to meet you. My name's Adam. Walk away because you are not my client, right? Like, you have no context for using social media to grow your business, right? And for me to open the door to the importance of social media is like a world, like, I need clients who say, I know I need social media, I just don't know how to do it right. Okay, well, I can help you do it in a way that builds trust. And we know that trust is essential to make a purchase because we don't buy from anybody we don't trust. And so how do we create a consistent messaging from your email to your website, to your social media post, to how you answer the phone, to how you respond to a quote that builds enough trust with a client that, number one, they want to purchase from you, and number two, they can't wait to tell a friend about your business.
So you just brought up an interesting point, and that really is the idea that you've always got to be thinking about the next step.
Absolutely.
And how are you tying them in? But also that I heard a Gary V on something this last week essentially say you've got to be in the conviction business, not the convincing business.
Mm,
That it's don't spend your time convincing people. And I think
yeah.
that's at the heart of what you're saying is it's not that the person may not need it in their business. Why spend time chasing after people who you've got to educate from the ground up when you could go after people who have enough knowledge to know, hey, I know I need this thing. I just need an implementer or someone to help me figure out the skills to move it forward.
Right. And it's also possible that they understand they have a problem they're trying to solve, but they don't know what that solution is. So they might not come to me and say, hey, I know I need help using social media. They might come to me and say, hey, I can't get my team on the same page. Or every time we get a customer, they sign the contract, and within a month, they have really different expectations than what we promised. Or, you know, somebody comes to me and they want the cheapest available quote possible, but we're not that guy. It's like, okay, well, if they got that far in the process, still looking for the cheapest possible quote, and you're not that guy, we have an issue with messaging up until this point. We need to talk with Ryan. We need to bring in Ryan, right? So I can help you figure out what are your core values? What is the thing that makes you stand out for your competition? Why would a customer drive past your competition to do business with you? And once we figure that out, then Ryan Holck is the guy to help us figure out the words to use to
Right.
communicate that clearly to the customer.
Mm.
So they might come to me and say, hey, we've got this problem. They might not come to me and say, hey, we need to do social media better. And often, frankly, if they say, hey, we need to do social media better, we need to then I need to do some litmus tests with them to find out, is it just social media or is that just, taking the brunt of the blame, right?
Yes, yes, because I suspect yours is similar, but when my phone rings, what they ask for is usually an element of what is needed or the most evident result of what may be needed. It's not actually the core issue they're struggling with.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
people call
So,
and say, I need a website. Well, maybe.
right. Yeah. My business coach kind of drives home two analogies. She says that if you have a headache and you take a Tylenol and the headache goes away, it's not because your body was deficient in Tylenol, right?
That's good.
There's something else going on that's causing the headache. And so oftentimes clients will call you and I and ask us to relieve a symptom, right? And it's like, we need to get past the symptom. And then the second thing she says is when somebody buys a drill, it's not because they want a drill, it's because they want a hole, right? So they might come to
Right.
you asking for the drill, but really they don't want the drill, they want a hole, right? The drill is the tool to get there. And so part of the process and bringing it back to an elevator pitch is
Yep.
to open the door to help somebody see how you solve the problem, not just address the symptom.
Because at the end of the day, people pay for outcomes, not for the
Yep.
tasks. And you got to make sure you open the door in a way that makes them see this person knows both sides of this and can help me move forward.
Yes. And I don't know very many clients. I can't think of any clients who I said, hi, my name's Adam. I peel digital onions. They took the bait. They asked the follow up question. I give them my 3-minute follow up about how we peel off layers and get to the heart of the issue. And really, it's about messaging typically. And then they go, great. I would like to sign up for a 10K a month retainer. When can we start? That is now the beginning of the conversation. It's the follow up email. It's, hey, let's talk more in detail. In the sense of the elevator pitch, they're getting off at their floor in the hotel and you're going up another couple floors, right? So you need to, again, end that piece with the idea that there's more to come and
Mhm.
leave them with they're going to go do homework. They're going to go talk to the right person. They're going to go grab a Zoom call availability, or they're going to, leave you their business card so you can follow up with them by email or send a text message, whatever the case is, right? You're not leaving them with a dead end. You're leaving them with the open opportunity to follow up for more.
I like that because you essentially in that you're bookending things with I opened with a hook that got them engaged and I'm closing the conversation, but I'm really opening the door for the next one.
Yep. It's the see you later, not goodbye.
Yes, yes. So good. Well, Adam, I thank you for having this conversation today. And I actually thank you for the insights because this is not where I thought this conversation was going. It just in terms of you're taking a very creative angle that takes another piece of story that I've not thought about in this context. And I love it. So thank you. If you have shared a couple things that I think would be super valuable for people to be able to latch onto and maybe contact you about. So how can people reach out to you?
Best option is trustmarketingagency.com or track me down on LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are the two channels that I'm personally most active on. Instagram, if you want to see guys breaking their ankle on skateboards, and LinkedIn, if you actually want to hear my business insights. So those are the options.
Awesome. All right, Adam, thank you so much. I appreciate it.